As the conflict in Ukraine continues to dominate global headlines, diplomatic efforts are ramping up, with the Kremlin voicing expectations for challenging negotiations in Saudi Arabia. These discussions, set against the backdrop of the ongoing Russo-Ukrainian war, reflect the complexities of international relations as various nations attempt to navigate the turbulent waters of war, peace, and political maneuvering. On March 23, 2025, the Kremlin indicated that the upcoming talks in Saudi Arabia would be fraught with difficulties, signaling a cautious approach to diplomatic engagement. "We are preparing for difficult negotiations," a Kremlin spokesperson stated, emphasizing the intricate nature of the discussions ahead. The focus of these talks is not only on the immediate ceasefire but also on the broader implications of the conflict, which has significantly impacted global security and economic stability. Meanwhile, former U.S. President Donald Trump weighed in on the situation, asserting that efforts to contain the Russo-Ukrainian war are somewhat under control. His comments made earlier the same day reflect a perspective that while the conflict remains a significant concern, there is a semblance of management in place. This viewpoint underscores a division in political rhetoric regarding the effectiveness of current strategies employed by world leaders to address the ongoing crisis. In Ukraine, the government is bolstering its defense capabilities by ramping up domestic ammunition production, aided by a licensing agreement with Czech manufacturers. This move, highlighted in reports from March 23, aims to enhance the nation's self-sufficiency in military supplies, a crucial aspect as the war continues to stretch on. Analysts suggest that this strategic enhancement not only aims to support the Ukrainian military but also serves as a message to international allies about Ukraine's commitment to its defense. The multifaceted nature of the Russo-Ukrainian war is further illustrated by the latest assessments from the Institute for the Study of War, which reported ongoing Russian offensives as of March 22. The report details various military strategies employed by Russian forces, showcasing an evolving battlefield that requires constant adaptation from Ukrainian defenses. The war, now on its 1123rd day, has prompted both sides to reassess their military tactics continually as they grapple with the realities of protracted conflict. As these events unfold, the international community watches closely, aware that the outcomes of negotiations in Saudi Arabia could set the tone for future interactions between Russia and Ukraine. The Kremlin's acknowledgement of the difficult path ahead may indicate a reluctant openness to dialogue, but it remains to be seen whether this will translate into meaningful progress on the ground. Looking forward, the convergence of diplomatic maneuvers, military strategies, and economic ramifications will shape the next phase of the Russo-Ukrainian conflict. As nations engage in dialogue and prepare for potential resolutions, the stakes remain high, with the possibility of both escalation and peace hanging in the balance. The coming weeks will be critical in determining not just the fate of Ukraine but also the broader geopolitical landscape as countries navigate the implications of this ongoing war. As the geopolitical landscape continues to evolve, the tensions between Russia and Ukraine remain a focal point of international concern. With ongoing hostilities and mounting casualties, diplomatic efforts are being intensified. This weekend, high-stakes discussions between U.S. and Ukrainian officials are set to take place in Saudi Arabia, aimed at navigating the complexities of the current conflict. However, the Kremlin has issued stark warnings, indicating that the negotiations will be difficult. In a particularly alarming development, a mass drone attack conducted by Moscow has resulted in the deaths of 7 individuals just hours before the planned ceasefire talks. This strike underscores the precarious nature of the situation and the challenges facing diplomats as they strive for peace. Reports suggest that the drone assault was part of Russia's continued military strategy, which has heavily relied on aerial attacks to assert its dominance in the region. The timing of these events raises critical questions about the sincerity of Russia's commitment to negotiations. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov highlighted the challenges ahead, stating negotiations must be approached with caution as there remains a significant gap in positions. This sentiment reflects a broader skepticism among Western officials regarding Russia's intentions, particularly given its recent military actions. Meanwhile, Ukraine has adapted its tactics to counter Russian aggression, utilizing a chaotic drone arsenal that has afforded it a tactical advantage on the battlefield. As noted by military analysts, the shift has allowed Ukraine to execute surprise attacks and disrupt Russian operations effectively. Our forces have become more agile and unpredictable, which is essential in the current environment, a Ukrainian military representative remarked. The dual narratives of impending diplomatic efforts and ongoing military confrontations highlight the complexity of the situation. While the discussions in Saudi Arabia are being framed as a potential turning point, the backdrop of violence complicates any prospects for meaningful outcomes. Observers are cautious but hopeful that these talks could pave the way for a more stable future. As the world watches, the potential for escalation remains high alongside the hope that dialogue can prevail over conflict. The coming days will be critical in determining whether these negotiations will yield any tangible results or if they will fall victim to the ongoing cycle of violence. With both sides entrenched in their positions, the international community remains vigilant, awaiting developments that could reshape the course of this enduring conflict. In a striking declaration that has reverberated across international media, former U.S. President Donald Trump asserted that he is the only leader capable of stopping Russian President Vladimir Putin. This comment, made during a recent rally, has ignited a flurry of reactions from political analysts, media commentators, and world leaders alike. As the geopolitical landscape continues to shift amid ongoing tensions in Eastern Europe and elsewhere, Trump's bold claim raises questions about the dynamics of power and conflict resolution on the global stage. Trump's statement comes in the context of heightened hostilities between Russia and Ukraine, a conflict that has drawn in multiple nations and significantly impacted international relations. The former president emphasized his belief in his unique ability to negotiate with Putin, stating, "No one can stop Putin but me." This assertion highlights Trump's self-proclaimed prowess in foreign diplomacy, a hallmark of his tenure in the Oval Office. Analysts are quick to point out, however, that the situation is far more complex than any single leader's influence could imply. The Kremlin responded to Trump's remarks with unexpected candor, indicating that conversations between Putin and Trump may have occurred more frequently than previously disclosed. This revelation not only complicates the narrative surrounding U.S.-Russia relations but also suggests a potential backchannel that could be leveraged in future diplomatic efforts. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov remarked, "Dialogue is always preferable to confrontation," a sentiment that underscores the importance of communication even amidst ongoing conflicts. The broader implications of Trump's comments cannot be overlooked, especially as commentators warn that Putin has little incentive to seek a peaceful resolution to the war. In an analysis published by WorldCrunch, experts argue that Putin's strategic objectives align with prolonging the conflict, thereby solidifying his domestic power base and expanding Russia's geopolitical influence. Don't be fooled, the commentary cautions, Putin wants the war to continue. This perspective paints a grim picture, suggesting that Trump's claim of being a potential peacemaker may be overly optimistic given the current realities of the conflict. Furthermore, recent opinion pieces such as one from Times Union emphasize the necessity of acknowledging the genuine threats posed by Putin's regime. The commentary argues that underestimating Putin's intentions could lead to significant miscalculations in Western foreign policy. Vladimir Putin does mean us harm, the article states, urging a more cautious approach when dealing with Russia. This sentiment reflects a growing consensus among Western leaders that a robust strategy is needed to counteract Putin's aggressive maneuvers. As international tensions remain high, the discourse surrounding Trump's statements and Putin's actions underscores a crucial moment in global politics. The interplay between these two powerful figures will likely shape the course of negotiations and conflicts in the near future. Observers are left to ponder whether Trump's self-assuredness can translate into viable diplomatic action or if it merely serves as rhetoric amid a complex geopolitical landscape. Looking ahead, the coming months will be pivotal. The ongoing war in Ukraine, coupled with shifting alliances and emerging power dynamics, will demand astute leadership from both established and aspiring figures on the world stage. As the dialogue unfolds, the question of whether anyone can indeed stop Putin will persist, challenging leaders to navigate an increasingly fraught international environment with both caution and resolve. In a dramatic turn of events, former President Donald Trump has made headlines by sharing an important letter from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky following a contentious meeting in the Oval Office. This meeting, characterized by sharp exchanges between the two leaders, has brought renewed attention to the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia, as well as the United States' role in international diplomacy regarding the situation. Amidst escalating tensions in Eastern Europe, Trump touted the letter during a public address, emphasizing its significance in the context of U.S.-Ukraine relations. This letter highlights the urgent need for our allies to unite against Russian aggression, Trump stated, underscoring the importance of collaboration among Western nations. His remarks come at a critical time, as world leaders prepare for a series of peace talks aimed at de-escalating the conflict that has persisted since Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014. The backdrop to this diplomatic drama is a series of recent Russian attacks that have left 7 people dead in Kyiv, raising alarms about the potential for further violence ahead of the anticipated negotiations in Saudi Arabia. Zelensky has called on allied nations to intensify pressure on Russia, urging them to take a firmer stance against what he described as unprovoked acts of war. The Ukrainian leader's appeal for solidarity among allies reflects a growing concern that without a unified front, the prospects for meaningful negotiations could be jeopardized. Political analysts believe that the timing of Trump's revelation about the letter could be a calculated move to position himself as a leader on international issues. Despite his previous contentious relationship with Zelensky during his presidency, particularly surrounding the Ukraine scandal that led to his first impeachment. By re-engaging with Ukraine now, Trump may be seeking to align himself with the current geopolitical narrative while appealing to his base, which has shown interest in foreign policy matters. As the international community watches closely, the upcoming talks in Saudi Arabia are expected to address not only the immediate cessation of hostilities but also long-term strategies for peace in the region. The success of these negotiations will depend heavily on the willingness of both Ukraine and Russia to compromise, as well as the level of support they receive from their respective allies. Looking ahead, the interplay of domestic politics and international diplomacy will likely continue to shape the narrative surrounding the Ukraine conflict, with significant developments expected in the coming weeks, including the peace talks. The global landscape could see shifts that redefine alliances and influence future U.S. foreign policy. As tensions remain high and the situation evolves, the world will be watching closely to see how diplomatic efforts unfold and whether the calls for unity can translate into effective action against ongoing aggression. The outcome of these negotiations could have far-reaching implications not only for Ukraine and Russia but for the entire geopolitical climate in Europe and beyond.